Welcome to day 4 and stage 3, the Mitchelton Wine stage 3 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour 2018 edition. Got Dave McKenzie joining me again for the start of today's stage. Well, it's a ripper and 218 kilometres of difficult terrain, Dave McKenzie, and the riders, when they left the Mitchelton Winery this morning in beautiful weather, they were ready to do action and complete this, the final task probably to complete the GC victory.
Well, maybe that's a question mark, isn't it? But it's certainly the toughest stage, we believe, of the race. 218, let's round it out, make it 220 with the neutral zone. It's a tough day, and there's climbs before Lake Mountain where we sit here at the finish, but this is a proper mountain. It's a 20-kilometre climb, give or take, from Marysville, and it climbs from there. There are some false flat sections and even a downhill section, but it is a proper mountain. We're at altitude. It's a ski field in winter. It's certainly not that today. It's quite warm. It's actually very pleasant, and it is perfect conditions for a bike race. But it's game on, and I think we're all interested, and even around the world, you viewers, we're interested to see how Esteban Chavez is at. Where's he at, the Colombian? He's a man who's finished on 2 podiums in the two of the biggest Grand Tours in the world. And then what about Larry Warbasse, the American? I've been I'm finding out more about him. I must admit, I didn't know a lot about Larry apart from being the US champion. And there's other riders that I think that can challenge today.
Certainly, and I agree. And we'll find out how good Esteban Chavez is in about an hour and a half's time, hour and 20 minutes' time. But let's recap the stage. The stage was straight out of the gun, as it is in that area. We left the Strathbogie Shire, and, well, they got straight into the action, and straight away 6 riders snuck off the front. That was actually Etienne Van Empel, yesterday's breakaway rider for Roompot, Netherlands. Ed Bradbury from JLT Condor. Steele Von Hoff, the green jersey, the sprint jersey classification.
Riding well.
And he's got in the early break this morning. Brad Evans joined him, breakaway from day 1. Kane Richards also joined him, and Matt Ross from Quartermenta Real Estate. Then 3 riders tried to come across, 1 rider unsuccessful, but joining them was Jonathan Noble from Brisbane Continental and Ashley McKay, the 22-year-old from the Australian Cycling Academy. That made 9 riders out front, and, well, the peloton, they let them go straight away. At the 25k mark, they went out to 3 minutes 25 already, and they got their biggest lead at around about the 50-kilometre mark, nearly 7 minutes. Yeah,
the peloton put the clutch in, didn't they? And with such a long stage and knowing what is coming at the finish here, they could have let them go to 15 minutes, to be honest. And but probably the one that was really interesting to go in there was Steele Von Hoff.
As we're looking at the map now, and it shows you where that first intermediate sprint was, which in fact Steele Von Hoff did win. We'll recap those results in a moment. Then the King of the Mountain. It's a Category 4, the first King of the Mountain, followed by the Category 2 King of the Mountain for the Skyline Road King of the Mountain. And then up the top here, Dave McKenzie, well, it is a Cat 1, and it deserves a Cat 1. So to recap the results of those sprints and King of the Mountain. So the sprint jersey for the Gatorade sprint jersey and Seymour today. Steele Von Hoff, he took out the victory there. Kane Richards, he finished second, and Matt Ross third. And in the second intermediate sprint at Alexandra, Steele Von Hoff was in first, Kane Richards in second, and Matt Ross third. So it's the same thing. So now in total, it's 28 points. Steele Von Hoff, he's in the lead by 10 points over Kane Richards. So it's very difficult. Yes, Kane Richards could win that classification tomorrow at King Lake, but it's very difficult for him to overcome a 10-point deficit.
It's almost a done deal, isn't it? And the way Steele Von Hoff, the Australian's been riding, in fact, he's been super this week. I feel for him, he hasn't been able to jag a stage win yet. He's come close, but he's in great form, and he's actually had a great summer racing. But good to see some of these domestic Australian teams. They get their chance to shine. And, especially with the live stream that goes around the world, anyone can watch it. It gives some of their sponsors exposure. It gives these young riders exposure, plus the fact that they get to race against some of the World Tour teams, Mitchelton Scott, Trek Segafredo. So it's such a great race for breeding young talent and young Australian talent. And as much as the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, we've had world beaters at this race over the years. I think it's quite incredible, the riders and the stars that have come out here over the 50, 60-year 65 years, in fact, history of the event. But, the young riders as well and the developing riders have always had that opportunity to race against them.
Well, the Portuguese champion Guerreiro from Trek Segafredo, he's got a very good chance of winning up the top here today. He's a rider that we could potentially see win the Tour de France in 5 or 6 years' time. And it's the breeding ground of those riders. And, well, he'll really relish in today's conditions, particularly here up on the Cat 1 finish up here on Lake Mountain. But to recap the King of the Mountain for Iceaway Sports, it was Brad Evans. Well, he already picked up points on the first road stage, and he picked up more points on the first Category 4 climb of the day. He took the 8 points, 4 points to Van Empel in the break yesterday, and then it was Kane Richards. He was active in both the sprints and the King of the Mountains this morning. On the second King of the Mountain, which was the Cat 2, for a massive 20 points, it was Brad Evans who picked up the major points again, and now he leads that competition by 12 points over Van Empel. Again, it's another classification. It's going to be very difficult for the Dutchie to close that 12-point gap, isn't it?
It certainly is, and yeah, with the day to go, and look, we're second guessing here. We're sort of preempting what will happen, that they will be caught up this mountain. We're expecting that as the gap has come right down now. So we'll see a battle for the GC guys in the stage win, and the points, maximum points will be taken from one of those riders, we'd imagine. But it's it's interesting. There's so much going on in the race, and it's just going to be a great finale today. And again, the few names that we mentioned, there's a few more that we haven't mentioned that
can't give them everything straight away, can we?
No, we can't give them everything straight away. But let's just quickly recap as well yesterday's stage result. Obviously finishing in Ballarat, in Buninyong, with that finishing circuit.
Well, before you get to the results, what did you think of that final lap around Buninyong? We know it from the National Road Championships. We see that all the time. But it was a different story, wasn't it? Because normally in the championships we see 17 laps. The riders are absolutely on their last legs when they come around that last time. But yesterday when they got to the course, they're almost fresh and eager to really attack the climb.
Well, I think we were surprised, and maybe it showed. It was a 200-kilometre stage. It showed that climb, and, a bunch of 50, 60 riders went across the top. So I thought it was fantastic, to answer the question, and utilise that circuit. It's become quite popular. The Europeans knew about it. They said, we watch the national championships. It gets streamed, I think, globally now as well, and for the ones that were in Australia while it was on. But again, it was Mads Pedersen from Trek Segafredo. He thanked his team a lot, and of course Kunderkoort, the Dutchman, who did a great job. And then it was Steele von Hoff, second, who we've just mentioned.
The bridesmaid.
And Alex Edmondson, and we've got a little bit of news on Alex Edmondson, third on the stage yesterday, but we've got some news on him today.
Yeah, the National Road Champion at 60 kilometres from the finish line. He's had a bad fall. He has made his way back through the vehicles, and he has had medical assistance, so he's back in the peloton, but it's not the kind of start to the season you want. He won on Buninyong in January for the National Road Championships. He carries the National Road Champions jersey, and while he was very happy to run third yesterday, we almost suggest that he has a love affair with Buninyong now. But he's had that crash, he's come back through. And, well, we've got also the jersey leaders, Dave Macca. So Matt Ross continues to lead the Visa Victoria Summer of Cycling white jersey. Steele von Hoff, as we mentioned, leads the Gatorade green jersey competition. Nathan Earl will wear today's Iceaway Sports King of the Mountains jersey. However, no points for him today, so that jersey will go to Brad Evans at day's end. And, well, Mitchelton Scott, they continue to lead the team's classification, albeit by a small margin. We've now got live pictures, and we can bring those to you as we speak. And this is the breakaway, and it's 50 kilometres to go that we join the coverage now, and the gap is down to just 2 minutes.
Yes, it's not much, so 50 kilometres to go. You can see there, we talk about the lovely conditions, so it is a perfect day. Expected top around the course today. I mean, it's a long day, so the weather will change ever so slightly, and it's a bit cooler at the top, but 25 to 30 degrees, so perfect day. We've had some hot weather over summer, and there you can see now getting some support at the back there, and still that group of 9 riders, so they've worked well together for a while. There's the Dutchman, Van Empel, who's been in the breakaway 2 days in a row now, in those orange and black colours there. So they've enjoyed their summer of racing out here. Of course, they came out for the Cadell Evans Great Ocean Road Race as well.
Yes, they certainly did. And it's to recap in this group of 9. A group of 9's a great sized breakaway for a long day like this. A 218-kilometre journey from Mitchelton Winery all the way up to where we are sitting, Dave McKenzie, Lake Mountain. So it's Jonathan Noble from Brisbane Continental. He's been joined in the breakaway by Etienne Van Empel from Roompot Netherlands Lottery. From Ed Bradbury, he's from the JLT Condor, as we see Steele von Hoff in the green Sprinters jersey being serviced from his vehicle, getting those liquids on board, asking the questions. How far back to the group? How hard do we need to ride to survive through the time cut, which we'll talk about in just a moment's time. Steele Von Hoff's joined by Brad Evans from the Mobius Bridge Lane team. Kane Richards is there for McDonald's Down Under. He's in there with a teammate as well, the New Zealander Alexander Ray, McDonald's team Down Under also. Matthew Ross, who wears the white jersey, and just see him just in front of Steele Von Hoff for the Visit Victoria Summer of Cycling. He wears the Young Riders jersey for the Mobius, for the Quartermantha Real Estate, and for the Australian Cycling Academy Visit Sunshine Coast, it is Ashley McKay, the 22-year-old from Queensland. So that makes up your 9-rider breakaway, as we see Steele Von Hoff trying to cool himself off as well. Conditions are perfect, Dave McKenzie, but when you've ridden for 200k, well, not quite 200 yet, but also backing it up from 210-kilometre stage yesterday, the core temperature is up, isn't it? And you really start to, you heat up. You almost feel hotter than you really are.
Yeah, you do. And look at some of the roads today. There's a little bit of shelter, but there's also sections where it's quite open and the sun would be just beating down. Early on in the stage, they would have had that. It was warm at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Australian Standard Time. It was quite warm at the start, and it's quite open, hot and dusty there. There wasn't too much wind, so that was a good sign for the riders when they took out. But it is a lovely day. We couldn't have asked for a better one. And as we see the SRAM neutral service now, just getting up, looking after a couple of their riders. So they're up there because possibly a few of the team cars have stayed back with the peloton for most of the stage to service the other riders in that team, and that's why the SRAM neutral service car has gone up.
Yes, generally in the final 25 kilometres, you're no longer allowed to feed to the riders, so the team's cars would have fed these riders. They'll pull over on the side of the road because the team managers and also their mechanics, they need a nature break at some point as well during the day. 200 kilometres is a long time. They'll then pull over and they'll wait for the bunch to come through, and they'll almost do their own makeshift feed zone on the side of the road, and then they'll rejoin the convoy of cars behind the peloton. And then as their riders in the breakaway are requiring, then they will call them up via the radio from the official team cars and also the official commissaires vehicles on the course. So you see following the riders and also the blue Honda Civic leading the field up there to make sure the road is safe and clear. Well, Dave, I wouldn't mind talking about a couple of the riders that we think can shake things up, maybe some of the unexpected riders. In particular, we've got JLT Condor represented here with Ed Bradbury. But I think his teammate, he's got two teammates, but one that really interests me about today's stage and also tomorrow. And he had a fine finish yesterday, finished in the top 5, was Thomas Stewart from JLT Condor at just 15 seconds. He finished 4th yesterday. If he finishes 3rd, he gets that 4 seconds time bonus. He was just off Alex Edmondson. But his ability to sprint is what interests me, because if he goes into tomorrow's stage this close, he's probably going to be sprinting against climbers, and well, they will have no hope.
Well, you wonder, don't you? You think back to last year, I guess, for a second, and we think about the climb of Falls Creek, and I'd say it's harder than the Lake Mountain climb. It drags up towards the top, as this one does, but I'd say Falls Creek is harder. What happens if we get 10 to 15 guys that come to the finish together? We're going to see a tight race for tomorrow. So I'm not convinced that it will blow apart, this climb. I'm just not convinced. I think there's a big question mark on Esteban Chavez. Where's he at? Where's his form at for January? We know he's been very good in the past. He's world class, and we saw him, I think it was last January, how good he was over at the Tour Down Under, and then, of course, here at the J.K. Herald Sun Tour. But he didn't win. He didn't win either of them. So I just want to know where he's at this year, his form, as he started his season a little bit later. He said he's feeling good, but it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors all the time. And, I've been going around interviewing the riders each morning for the TV coverage as well. And they're not giving too much away. I think Larry Warbass basically said today that the team will support him. There's Kane Richards there, a bit of a smile on the face for Team McDonald's Down Under. And that's the rider from JLT, Condor Bradbury, You talk about his teammate. So do you think he can possibly get up with the leaders today?
Yeah, I do. I think Tom Stewart can, and I think Ian Bibby has the opportunity as well. We've seen Ian Bibby have a little bit of brain fades, and he did that on the crosswind day. He lost that minute 44 that he's now down on the general classification. But if he can really strap it in, he won the climb up Admiral Hill in New Zealand in the UCI New Zealand Cycle Classic just 3 weeks ago, and you know that climb as well. It's a kilometre and a half, and it's stiff climb. It's about 17%. So he's not going to have an issue in following potentially even Chavez on the initial ascent at the bottom of the climb where it's its most steep. But as we spoke about on the top of the coverage, there's actually downhill section as well. It's the final 10 kilometres of this climb that really are constant. But you are right, it's not as difficult to climb as Falls Creek. And also the conditions up here are warmer. Last year on Falls Creek, it was only about 7 degrees on top, and a lot of riders were struggling with their respiration, their capability to breathe.
Bit higher too, Falls Creek in altitude. Not much, but I think every little bit, it adds 1%, doesn't it? And, that's it. Still Von Hoff there, wearing the green jersey.
And he's not rolling through anymore.
No, he's not. He's starting to sit back, and I think he must have had a clear goal and objective at the beginning of the day. He probably knows he can't get up the climb today, so he's gone out, take both intermediate sprints. He's done that, job done. Now, do enough to help these guys out, but certainly don't spend any more biscuits than he needs to.
Well, I really think he's a legitimate chance to win tomorrow's race, either in the breakaway or from the field. Tomorrow's stage is very hard, but he's in exceptional form. 6th at Cadell's race, 6th on the final stage at TDU, 3rd in the National Criterium Championships, and, well, twice 2nd here at the Jayco Herald Sun Tour already. We've now got some information through. The gap is now down to 1 minute 30. That's at the 174 kilometre mark. So that's about 45 kilometres to go. So it's all coming back together in a professional manner for the GC hitters to really fight it out. You spoke about Larry Warbass, and he's in a similar situation to two very interesting riders that I'd like to talk about. Dylan Sunderland and Chris Harper, who both ride for the Benelong Swiss Wellness team. They've got a teammate, Cam Bailey, just 14 seconds off the lead. The two of those riders remain at 40 seconds at a similar time gap to Larry Warbass. They need to take significant time today. And to do so, they're going to have to go a long-range attack, potentially 10 or at least 8 Ks from the finish.
Yeah.
How can you see that playing out? If Chavez does attack, he's 46 seconds behind, and Harper or Sunderland or Warbass are to follow him at a similar distance behind him, he can't really work, can he? Because he's got his two teammates, Howson and Meyer, very close.
Yeah, that's right. And just back on Warbass for a second, he said, we can't really strong-arm Mitchell and Scott. He said they've got the 3, and he goes potentially 5 good climbers in the race. So he said it's not a case of strong-arming them. It's more of a case of just riding smart and tactically, riding smart. And he seemed really relaxed. And he's prepared for a big battle, and I think he's hoping and quietly confident that he can maybe go with them. So I think it's going to be, no matter what happens, it's going to be a really good climb to watch and watch it unfold and those tactics. And I'm expecting an early attack, or at least an early surge from Mitchell and Scott. They are not just going to ride a relatively hard tempo at the base. They're going to ride a very hard tempo, or they're going to launch an attack. They'll send one of their riders on the attack, whether it's Howson, Meyer or Chavez first. I think one of them will launch an attack.
Well, I think they have to, because otherwise there's going to be a series of riders that get a sniff of it, and we know what the Aussie domestic riders are like at this time of the summer. They get a bit of a sniff of it, and they'll think they're a chance, and we saw it last year with Damien Howson's ride. His move, no one thought he could go all the way. Kenny Ellison, the French national for Team Sky, he followed him, and then he sat on him, and he actually rode Kenny Ellison off his wheel. So it's amazing what the Aussies can find their level at this time of the year. The peloton now just a minute 30 behind at the 45 kilometre to go mark. 45 kilometres to go. A few riders starting to miss turns there. Van Empel on the back, the Dutchman. He's just sitting on and just flicking the elbow and the shoulder. Maybe it's a good time to talk to the people that are listening, Dave McKenzie, about time cuts. So the time cut for this stage is 15% of the winner's time. So that is 9 minutes per hour of racing. that the winner of the race finishes. So riders really need to be thoughtful of that. Today, it's going to be about a 5-hour race. So you've got, 40 to 45 minutes to make the time cut. That should be plenty if you can get to Marysville.
Yes, it should be plenty. And because of the way the race has unfolded with the early break, although the peloton let them go out to 7 minutes, they haven't raced too hard from all accounts over those early King of the Mountains classifications. So I don't think there'll be any problem there. As we see Brad Evans leading them at the moment. For Mobius Bridge Lane, former winner of the Tour of Tasmania in Australia, Southern Australia, the island that sits on the bottom for all of our international viewers. So he's forcing the pace along there. So there's still a group of them trying to work well together here.
Ed Bradbury looks very good there, doesn't he? Pedalling lightly pedalling on the pedals. For those who don't know how the time cut works, basically, Dave McKenzie, if you don't finish within that time, you are what they call out of time, and you are out of the race. and after completing yesterday's 210-kilometre stage, and also looking forward to tomorrow's final stage there in King Lake, which is a beautiful stage, these riders will not want to be cut out of the tour. Mitchelton Wine Stage 3, Mitchelton Winery to Lake Mountain, 218 kilometres. That is what you have joined us to watch today on the stream. We thank you for joining us again and all your support this week for both the women's race and now the men's race. It's going to be a cracker, and we're really looking forward to seeing how it unfolds, because everyone expects Esteban Chavez, the Colombian kangaroo they nickname him, and he loves it. He embraces that. And, well, we've got Matt Keenan on the line. Matt, you're in the broadcast vehicle today. What can you tell us?
Well, the breakaway, as you know, the 9 riders out in front, they've been working really well together for most of the day, but we've seen a little bit of rivalry between Van Hinkle and also Evans, who have both been doing battle to try and win the King of the Mountains points. The Dutchman, not too long ago, he had a puncher. He got that changed pretty quickly, worked his way back into the group. And then I'm not sure that Brad Evans was aware of the fact that he'd had a puncher, because as soon as he returned, Brad Evans was at the back of the group remonstrating with him, as if to say, why haven't you been working? And he just made a really hard chase to try and get back on, which to me is just an indication of the fatigue that is starting to set in within that group. We're hearing with the time gap is now coming down towards the 1 minute mark. We're getting in towards Buxton, then on to Marysville. The break knows that it's soon, but still, they're pressing on.
Good stuff. And Matt, what about back in the peloton? I mean, fair to say, I guess, it's been a relatively easy day. Someone would have been setting tempo, but what's been the word from back in the peloton? And who has been setting tempo on the front?
It's been Mitchelton Scott. Did you guys hear about the crash with Alex Edmondson?
We did. So, yeah, what can you tell us about that, actually?
Well, he has fallen. He's been back with the race doctor. He's now reintegrated with the peloton. And it has been pretty much Mitchelton Scott who has been doing the lion's share of the chasing. Having had the chance to chat to the yellow jersey before the stage got started, Lass and Norman Hansen, he said that they'll roll at the front, but they're not really going to do a load of work to try and defend yellow. It's only Larry Warbass, who you've spoken about as a guy from that team, that can challenge with the climbers from the Mitchelton Scott team. So they're letting Mitchelton Scott do the chasing. Kunda talking to him from Trek Segafredo beforehand, he believes that the Portuguese champion, Ruben Guerreiro, can stick with the riders from Mitchelton Scott, that their best chance is to force Mitchelton Scott to do all the work. So they've been playing the game of, hey, we're starting at your winery, we're racing in your territory, you're the guys with the pressure, you chase. So thus far it's been Edmondson and Hepburn doing all the chasing.
Yeah, well, Trek have had a great season all around the globe, and finally they nailed the victory that they longed for on Australian territory this summer. And I am in agreement. I think Guerrero, if Chavez attacks right on the steep stuff, he is a rider that can follow, and then that will create a very interesting situation, because Guerrero at 22 seconds and Chavez at 46 seconds. Chavez can't take that time back in intermediate time bonuses, so he will have to ride away from Guerrero. So that would really pose a brilliant situation here on the final ascent.
Matt, just another question, and Pat and I were discussing it, and for me, I think you've got Hausen, Meyer and Chavez. Do you think they'll protect one of those riders outright, or do you think they'll try and play all three cards?
Well, I think it'll be a process of elimination. Cameron Meyer is the best placed overall. So as long as he stays in that group, he's protected. And if he gets dropped, but Housen is there, he's the next best place, so he's the one that will be looked after. At the breakfast table this morning, having had this exact conversation with each of them, they were all passing the buck to the other. Esteban was saying, it's not for me today, it's for Cameron, it's for Damien. Damien said, well, I'm behind Cameron, so he's the one who's in the box seat. None of them were publicly putting their hand up as the one to be protected. The mountain will take care of who's going to be the protected rider, because there's no good nominating that rider now. If the legs aren't there, they're just not there, as you guys know as well as anyone.
Well, very interesting, Matt. We'll let you go, but we might try and get you back, and hopefully somewhere on the mountain, and hopefully you've still got a bird's eye view then. So thanks for the insight, Matt. Enjoy that peloton or where you are, and hopefully we'll talk to Matt Keenan a little bit later on.
As we see many of these breakaway riders, they're actually basically giving up now, Dave. They've sat up. We've seen Steele von Hoff go back. We've seen Ashley McKay go back. And we've certainly seen also the Dutchie. He has returned to the peloton.
Yeah.
So after 182 kilometres, there's just 36 kilometres to go. And, well, the peloton, they have the breakaway in sight, and that's why those riders are going back. These riders are turning back. They've seen the peloton. The peloton just a minute's gap now behind this front group.
Yes, it's not much, is it? And when you've got a 20-kilometre mountain, it's we know they're going to be caught. Look, they could have had 5 minutes at the base of the mountain, and I don't think it would have mattered. So here they come now, still working well together. Matt Ross there, as you've mentioned, the Visit Victoria best young rider. He wears that white jersey. He's in the middle of that group there. Evans, number 64. And then the British rider there, Bradbury, at the rear. He'll make a left-hand turn here. So they're not too far away from Marysville, will be the next town. Going on the Maroondah Highway now. And it's Taggart that they're gone through. Left-hand turn. We drove this part of the course, Pat, on our way through just a couple of hours ago, in fact. So they now head up to the next town, Marysville. And incidentally, for our international viewers, this is an area, well, when we get into the town of Marysville, that was absolutely devastated from the Black Saturday bushfires quite a few years ago now. The whole town, in fact, was completely wiped out from the fires, and a whole area around it was wiped out. The mountain that we are on, a lot of it was burnt out. And so it's fantastic that the J.K. Herald Sun Tour and the state government of Victoria have brought the race back to this region, and so too King Lake, where the race finishes tomorrow for the second year running. It's been another important piece in the rebuild of the region, because those regions, both Marysville, you see there, 11 kilometres to Marysville, 32 kilometres to Lake Mountain. That's pretty much what they've got left to race. Not too long now, 12 kilometres thereabouts to the base of the mountain. But it is good that the bike race is back here and these live pictures and live vision. Beautiful part of the world, Pat. You would have ridden and raced around this area as much as I did. And the towns are like Healesville, Marysville, Lake Mountain. They're all affected massively from those bushfires. And it's good now that we bring some live pictures, and these towns are rebuilding and they look fantastic.
Well, we drove through Marysville as we came here to the finish today, and it looks an absolute piece. What they've been able to come together as a community and rebuild themselves is fantastic. As you said, we're up tomorrow for the final stage, and well, up in the areas around there, which were absolutely devastated. It looks a piece now. The community really came together, but this is a really nice parkour for this year's J.K. Herald Sun Tour. I love that it's gone back to some regional towns. I think that we've seen brilliant racing, crosswind racing, where it's split into Warrnambool. Yesterday we saw a finish that we expected maybe 5 or 6 rides to survive into Bunyan, because we're so used to seeing such a gruelling edition in the National Championships in Ballarat. But it wasn't. It was a big bunch sprint. It was an exciting finish right down to the line. Mads Petersen took out the stage, the Danish road champion. But again, I think we're going to see another ripper today. And I think that where the course has gone this year has promoted the strongest and most fit riders to come to the forefront. Yes,
and riders in form. And, you know, when you look at the stages, the distances, 2:18 today, 2:20 with the neutral, 2:09 yesterday, 160-odd kilometres the day before in the crosswinds and cooler conditions. The opening prologue, though, I think it's one of the best prologues. I mean, you raced many years overseas, we both have, and I think most riders, whether you're good at them or not, you love doing an individual prologue to start off a tour and the short ones, but I think the Jago Herald Sun Tour has one of the best prologue courses in the world. It's held in the CBD of Melbourne, which is a major city in Victoria, in southern Australia, and it's a city of almost 5 million people, and the CBD is a proper central business district, and we've got the river that flows through the city. And the prologue was sensational. And again, just to touch on it, we touched on it at the function last night at the Mitchelton Winery. The Jago Herald Sun Tour women's race, it was just a two-stage race this year, but they finished with the individual time trial. Brodie Chapman, who took that race out, she wore the yellow jersey in the final time trial for them. It was classed as a time trial because it was 1.6 kilometres and it was the second stage. But you've got rolling down the ramp just before her, the world champion in Annemiek van Vleuten, the world champion time trialist.
Who scorched the track.
Scorched it. She was 12 seconds in arrears before the time trial. She said, there's no chance I can catch her. Well, she made up 7.
Yeah.
And it just made it exciting. So I just think they've done a great job this year on both fronts of the course and, of course, implementing the women's race as well.
Well, and there's already talks on how to develop that women's race next year to align more of their stages with the men's stages and see how we can bring that. But it was great to bring these live stream pictures as well. That's another step forward. The tour's made some serious steps in the right direction this year, and it means a lot to us because we've got a personal attachment to the race because we've both raced it about 20 times between us, and it's been fantastic. Last night it was great to talk about some of our fond memories of the race.
I just wanted to get you to wind up then. We just got a bit of a close-up of the best young rider there, Matt Ross, and I noticed he tipped some water over his helmet because we're up at altitude here. It doesn't feel that hot when we're in the shade. At the back of his necks, you can see the dry salt, just really dry, and when you're tipping water over you, so it must be really, really hot down there in the valley. So the riders, and you think they've been out there for about 150 odd kilometres, maybe more. It's a tough day in the saddle, and I think it's a bit warmer than what we probably have experienced.
Well, they're in direct sunlight all day, and they've also got the vehicles that come beside them, but also add to that the 210 kilometres of racing yesterday, and we spoke about core temperature and how you recover, and it's a big thing in cycling. It's not always those who have trained the best for the event that get the result. It's those who recover best when at the race, and that can do with nutrition on and off the bike, food, drink, sleep, all those things. They're imperative to a good result. As we look at Alexander Ray from New Zealand, he rides for the McDonald's Down Under team, and he's a very aggressive young rider, but it's almost all coming to an end for the breakaway, and they're certainly not going to survive this ascent. It's just too much to ask, isn't it? No matter how good of a rider you are, no matter what level race it is, if you've been out front for 160, 170 kilometres, you've burnt some biscuits, and you're probably not going to have much coal left to throw on the fire.
No more matches to light it. So, yeah, it's a tough day, but they've done a good job, and we'll tip our hats to these group now of 6 riders that are left. The other few have gone back. Kane Richards there at the back for Team McDonald's Down Under, and good exposure for these teams. Some new teams too this year on the domestic scene in Australia, scene that's been growing over the years and growing in teams and sponsors, and I think that's very important. It's it's an important part of bringing up the developing riders. But also some of these teams head off to Asia, as we see the neutral service car going through, one of the commissaires' cars going through as well. So that means, and the motorbikes as well, this is when you know the catch is imminent. The peloton now would be getting very close. Even our cameras now have to get ahead of this break. We can't quite see that peloton behind, but it means that they're inside. They're less than a minute, I'd imagine, so they'll be closing up very shortly.
Yeah, they certainly will. And just so we can expand a little bit more on the live stream, so unlike broadcast TV, Dave Macca, there's no helicopter beaming pictures back down. There's no signal being sent. This is run off phone networks in Australia on the back of the motorbikes, on the cameras of these crews that are flying around the circuits. So when we do have dropouts, it's it's 100% network dropout. We can't control it.
No.
It's not a technological issue from our end. It's just the fact that there's no service. So in advance, I can tell you there will be a dropout during the ascent of Marysville, the ascent of Lake Mountain, should I say, just because, well, there are no network coverage at all, and we are beaming these images live from the network, and that's what makes this so incredible. We're sort of really being almost visionaries here to do this with cycling in Australia.
Well, it's our viewers are spoiled. Let's hope you appreciate it, and we certainly appreciate the back end work done by our technicians and our crew here on the ground. They've done a fantastic job, and it's great to beam this race live around the world wherever you are. Remember, it's on the Facebook page, the Herald Sun to a Facebook page, and so it's good of you all to join us and sit back and enjoy this last hour of racing, because they're only a few kilometres now from the beautiful town of Marysville. That's the town that I said that was devastated by bushfires over a decade ago now, and they'll go through Marysville. You'll see all the nationality flags, and then they'll effectively turn left at the roundabout and start the climb. Pat Shaw, because of that reason, I'm now going to have to leave you, and I will join the live crowd that is the top here, and I'll call the riders and the race into the finish, and you'll keep our fans online.
Yes, the
up
final
to speed
hour.
with everything. So enjoy that.
Yeah, I appreciate you dropping in, Macca, and I'm sure that the listeners do too. You had such great content to the chat. Well, it's all me to the finish now, ladies and gentlemen. It's Trek Segafredo that is riding the front of the peloton with the Mitchelton Scott team. And, well, I think this is a perfect time to break down the ascent of Lake Mountain. So the riders will start Lake Mountain, and in the first kilometre it sits at about 8%. Plateaus out in the next kilometre down to 5%, but then is the toughest part of the climb. That next 2 kilometres is at an average of 11%. It then plateaus out again, around 4.5% for 4 kilometres. A spike in the difficulty of the climb up to 7%, and that's at about the midway of the climb. At that point, they'll start to go downhill ever so slightly. It's about a 3% downhill grade. The downhill section lasts for about 1,500 metres, and then they start a gradual ascent back uphill. It's an average of 4.5 to 5% for the next 5 to 6 kilometres, but the final 4 kilometres is at just 4% average incline. And so if you're a rider that's survived to that point of the race and you have the ability to put in a good sprint, you may just find yourself producing a result you didn't know you were capable of today. Riders like Tom Stewart that I spoke of earlier from JLT Condor, who has a quick sprint on him at the end of a hard race, he also can climb, and I like the chances if he can survive to about that midpoint where it starts to go downhill. That's at around the 8 kilometre point on the climb. Remembering the ascent is 20.5 kilometres in total, so it's a difficult day, as we see yesterday's breakaway rider and local Ballarat boy Nicholas White. He's going back now. He'll have his final chat with his team car. This is their last opportunity to get any kind of food or water from their team car. As you see, he's dropping off biddens now, letting go with the weight, going to get some new biddens back in. He needs to get his energy up to the highest level. Yep, there they go. They've got the fresh bidden there. So maybe he's just feeling a bit hot from that bottle that he had earlier, and now he's gone back for a fresh one just to cool down a bit more. So that's the breakdown of the climb. Overall, it's about an average of 8%, 7 to 8%, but its most steepest point is 11%. The question is 11% steep enough for Esteban Chavez to really make a difference on this course today? Well, I have my questions and my doubts. I think that we're going to see a few more riders involved in this final than what we expect. And of those riders, I think potentially Dylan Sunderland, he looks like a real good chance to take this young rider's jersey today. With Matt Ross wearing that jersey today, he leads that Visit Victoria Summer of Cycling white under-23 jersey. But after having spent all that energy out front, I think that's really going to cost him on the climb once they start. As you can see, the bunch just 50 metres off the back of the breakaway now. And well, this morning we had some interviews that we did with the riders, and we'll bring those a bit later in the broadcast. Rumpot looking at the back of the peloton. They're struggling a bit, and I don't think this terrain really suits them. They're in their element for the crosswinds in the last couple of days. Very strong performances, but they're struggling in the hilly conditions. We're now looking at the bunch, ready to make the catch, 25 kilometres from the finish. We can now say the catch is about to happen. And yesterday, it was a brilliant sprint into Ballarat. Mads Pedersen, the Danish national champion, he was the fastest to the line by the smallest of margins over Steele von Hoff from the Benelong Swiss Wellness team. Once again in second position, playing a bit of the bridesmaid this summer, unfortunately for Steele, but a real positive for him is his form is absolutely exceptional. As we see the Oliver's Real Foods sprinter, Sean Whitfield, the pace is too hard. 25 kilometres to go. The time cut today will be over 45 minutes, so I think he'll have no problems whatsoever in making that time cut. So he'll just make his way up Lake Mountain at his own pace. Also at the back of the field, looks like that's the Quartamentha Real Estate rider. It definitely looks like it is the Quartamentha Real Estate rider. Can't pick up that number just at the moment. But recapping, Alex Edmondson, Australian road champion. He was third in yesterday's stage. And well, I asked him after the finish, do you have a love affair with Buninyong? He goes, well, it's turning out to be a little bit that way. He was glad that he could get around the circuit. There was always a plan for them to have a bunch sprint on this stage yesterday into Buninyong, and he was happy to reward his teammates with a podium finish, the Australian road champion. Unfortunately, he had a fall about 50 kilometres to go. He took off quite a lot of bark. Unfortunately for him, it's going to be a pretty harsh sleep tonight. He'll have a big day ahead of him tomorrow if his team is to, in fact, take over the lead of the race. At the moment, the yellow jersey worn by Lasse Norman Hansen of the Aqua Blue Sport team. Matt Ross, as we said, he wears the Young Riders jersey. In the sprint classification, that's Steele von Hoff. The hill climb jersey, the King of the Mountain classification, worn by Nathan Earl, but certainly changing hands at the end of the day because the rider from the Mobius Bridge Lane team, the Kiwi in Alexander Evans, Brad Evans, should I say, he will take over the lead in that jersey, and they have ridden a perfect race to go after that classification. Most aggressive rider yesterday, Alistair Donoghue out of the breakaway, the Paralympian, so he got most aggressive rider of the day. And in the teens classification, it is in fact Mitchelton Scott that leads the way. Only by the smallest of margins though. Mitchelton Scott, just by 2 seconds, they lead the team's classification over Trek Segafredo, an Australian team, Benelong Swiss Wellness. In 36 seconds is the Rumpot Netherlands Lottery team. And so that classification well and truly up for grabs, not only today, but also tomorrow at King Lake. I hope you've enjoyed the streaming that we have brought you already for this 2018 Jayco Herald Sun Tour, and also the 2018 Herald Sun Tour presented by Let's Go Motorhomes. As we see now, it's Briggs from JLT, and he's out the back with Alex Edmondson. Ryan Skurhaus, he looks like he's at the back as well, number 96. Yes, 96 actually, yes, it's Ryan Skurhaus. Graham Briggs from JLT and Alex Edmondson, they've made their way out at the back of the group. Looks like that was the breakaway rider. No, that's Yi Peng from the Team McDonald's Down Under, and now we can see the pace has significantly raised for these riders. We're now seeing Alex Frame, the quick rider from New Zealand for Trek Segafredo. He's going out the back as well. Hard to catch all these numbers. 125, that's the rider of Alex McKay. He was in the breakaway earlier. He sat up and went back to the bunch, and now he's been dropped from the front group, should I say. The big peloton now starting to shred the numbers. And well, this is how you make the race hard. You make it hard before the climb, which then makes the climb even harder. And I think that just proves what I was saying earlier, that although it's a tough climb up to the top here to reach us in Lake Mountain, it's probably not hard enough to just wait for the climb itself. 20.5 kilometres the distance of the final climb of the day, a Category 1 climb with 24 points on offer for the Iceaway Sports King of the Mountain classification. But today's winner will be more concentrating on winning the Tour, I think. So at the back here we have the riders of Jesse Coyle and also the riders of Joel Strachan, it looks like, at the back as well. This is where it gets hard. It gets very hard. Toby Orchard, domestic sprinter on the scene for the Australian Cycling Academy Ride Sunshine Coast. He's struggling as well. And look at these. I posted a video earlier today on Twitter. Marysville, very international of them. They've got all the flags of around the globe. As we see riders jumping the curb there, the JLT rider. Nice little smart moves. Jesse Coyle, he tries to make his way back at the back of the peloton. This is the start of the King of the Mountain, so 20.5 kilometres. That's what remains for the riders today. This is a Category 1 climb. It's a very difficult climb, but for the riders that really have a climbing pedigree, they're going to find this is where they really start to stamp their authority on the race. And you can see, look at the gaps opening up already. This is yesterday's birthday boy, Archibald, the flying mullet from New Zealand. Yes, it was his birthday yesterday, as was Ryan Thomas, who sits very high on the general classification for the Brisbane Continental team. He's in 14th position, Ryan Thomas. Birthday yesterday. This rider here, Alexander Ray, out of the breakaway, now losing the latch off the group. So too is Mads Peterson, yesterday's stage winner. Plenty of riders dropping off now. Liam McGuinness at the back here. We also see Theo Yates, Liam White, Anthony Giacopo there as well. In there also Ed Clancy. Those riders not expected to do a big result today. Ed Bradbury, who was in the breakaway. Also in there now is Pedersen, who's very ill from the Danish nation for Aquablue Sport. So now we're starting to see the real riders are pushing forward, and they're going to start to initiate this race for the general classification. This is Tom Robinson. He's at the back now. Well, these riders, they'll think of one thing only. How do I get to the finish? Consume the least amount of energy possible as we pass the Israel national champion. The Israel national champion, we've just gone past him. That's Goldstein. Roy Goldstein. He's a brilliant rider. He'll look to do better later in the year and probably guaranteed a start in the Giro d'Italia because Israel Cycling Academy will be racing that race. This is the rider of Thomas Casler from South Australia. He rides for Greatback Education First, but you can just see the masses of riders being dropped. These riders are really trying their best to hang on, as we now see one of the riders from the Aquablue Sport team. That's Peter Koenig. Ollie Kent Sparks, he's off the back as well now for Drapac Education First. Their eyes are all set on Cyrus Monk, and they'll also expect Jesse Feetenby to have a real chance to produce a result. Joseph Goober, ex-Kiwi national champion multiple times, and well, didn't he set the tone yesterday when they hit the ascent up Buninyong. Interpro rider, well, I'm surprised to see this one. I really expected a big ride from Daniel Whitehouse today. He's an elusive climber. He really is a brilliant climber in Asia. Some of the toughest and most steep ascents, but he's out the back early. Now we start to see some of the riders from the national team. Quartermentha Real Estate, Reece Tucknott, the mountain biker. Also dropping off Matt Gibson, the young rider from JLT Condor, the Great Brit. Ben Andrews, it's all become too much for Ben Andrews today. Aidan Campers for the Brisbane Continental, no, for the Australian Cycling Academy. He's struggling at the back now and dropping off as well. Israel Academy rider here, dropping off. No, it isn't. It's actually the Interpro rider. It's their rider from Spain dropping off there. Letura, the Rumpot rider at the Gref, he's also found the going too hard. Bicknell now struggling as well, and we start to see there's probably 35, maybe 40 riders that remain in this group. Looks like it might be Zach Dempster at the rear there for Israel Cycling Academy. It's certainly not good signs if you're at the back. Well, still good numbers there for the Benelong Swiss Wellness team. They've got 3 riders, well 4 riders including Von Hoff, but we can expect Von Hoff to drop off, I think, after his long day in the breakaway. Sealed the sprint jersey. It is in fact the rider of Jensen. It's Jensen, the Norwegian. The Danish rider, should I say, Jensen. He's dropped off for Israel Cycling Academy, so the peloton continues to shrink. And now they're about to hit the hardest section of the climb. Well, it seems strange that they hit the hardest section so early, but this is what is ruining a lot of riders' races. It is Van Genneken. He drops off as well. I'll keep you updated with if any of the real players on the general classification drop off, as we're now seeing the rider Ethan Behrens. He won the tar and gravel race in New Zealand very recently. The young Victorian is brilliantly talented. He's just on the beginning of the rise of his talent to show us really what he's made of. This looks like it could be Watson. Looks like Calvin Watson. It is Calvin Watson from the Aqua Blue Sport team. He's a previous winner of this Jayco Herald Sun Tour, but he won't be winning this edition. Maybe a chance for the breakaway tomorrow. We also see at the back Kundacourt. He starts to make his move back. All these riders were expected to have a tough day today. Number 66. Actually, sorry, that rider there was 56, Ed Clancy, the winner of the prologue on the first night. Zach Dempster, now we see Zach Dempster. We see also his teammate there in Netherlands. Well, the yellow jersey, ladies and gentlemen, he's ridden a great race. He's fought very hard, but this is not the terrain for Lasse Norman Hansen from Aqua Blue Sport. They said today they're working for Larry Warbass. Larry Warbass, the USA national champion, one of the most beautiful national champions jerseys I've ever seen, I reckon. But Larry Warbass's teammate, unfortunately, has dropped off the yellow jersey. He's now going to lose contact significantly here. Lasse Norman Hansen, his day's done. He was under no illusions. He knew this climb would be too hard for him. Now Cyrus Monk, the under-23 national champion, struggling. Looks like it was Pat Lane there potentially. I couldn't pick up the number of the quarter-menther rider. But Cyrus Monk, so now Drapac Education first. We can confirm it's just Jesse Featonby who remains in this front group. And let's have a little look at the other riders that seem to be struggling here at the rear of the group. The Rumpot rider there right at the back. Well, we're seeing big movements here. Stewart, it is Tom Stewart right at the back, and there's a genuine split here in the group as some cloud cover comes over us here at Lake Mountain. Very dark clouds indeed, but it is Stewart. He's fifth on the general classification. Fourth place yesterday. We just spoke about Jesse Featonby. He's also struggling at the back. Larry Warbass, he's only 5 wheels in front of Jesse Featonby. Not good signs for those riders. Looks like it has been enough for Jesse Featonby. Bulls to the left, not a good sign. He'll keep to push on. He'll keep trying to push on, but the struggle is real. On the right-hand side of your screen, the fluoro green, it looks like it's Steele Von Hoff, starting to struggle after being in the breakaway for almost 170 kilometres. He'll be the first rider to go back for the Benelong Swiss Wellness team. We still haven't seen the young riders' jersey, so Matthew Ross, tip the hat, young man. You've have ridden a great tour already so far, but now you're showing your real strength. Myers, he drops off. It is 76 there, in fact, so that's Cameron Bailey, 4th on the general classification. He's struggling. Michael Vink, 15th on the general classification. He's struggling. 127, which is Freddie Ovett. Well, he's out the back. Rob Powers out the back. It also looked like, didn't catch that. That looked very much like Cameron Meyer. I didn't catch that rider just then. It was, I'm sure I saw number 7. Cameron Meyer in difficulty. Damien Howson remains there. The rider of Dylan Sunderland remains there. Chris Harbour remains there. Guerrero remains there. The Latvian champion also remains there for the Israel Cycling Academy. That's Netherlands. And who's up the front? Esteban Chavez, it has to be. But from this surge of pace from the rider, from the Colombian Kangaroo, he has really put his teammates in trouble. Cameron Meyer in trouble, and also right at the back is Damien Howson. Chris Harbour remains there, Dylan Sunderland remains there, and Guerrero. Now this is the part of the climb that will suit Chavez the most. It's pinnacling out at 11 and 12%. And the smiling Colombian, he will love this terrain. However, I'm not so sure how much he'll love it when it drops down to that 3%, 3 to 4%. Look at his lovely pedalling stroke. He is a gorgeous rider to watch when he's in his form. And well, it looks like this year he's certainly come out to Australia in great condition. So Esteban Chavez, he has about a 12-second lead at the moment. That's not enough. He needs to extend that lead. He has a 46-second deficit to the overnight leader. We don't need to worry about that because unfortunately for Lasse Norman Hansen, he's been dislodged earlier in the climb. So the riders in that group, we can confirm Chris Harper, he's there. Dylan Sunderland also there. Those two riders, they're 6 seconds lead on Esteban Chavez, so he's passed those riders. The riders of real interest are the Portuguese champion, in fact, Guerreiro from the team of Trek Segafredo. He is really looking good. Ruben Guerreiro, he has 22-second deficit, so that's a 24-second lead over Esteban Chavez. So Esteban will need to take 24 seconds of raw time to take the jersey off Guerreiro. In that group also was Esteban's teammates, Damien Howson, at just 16 seconds behind. So Damien Howson's really the leverage point for Mitchelton Scott at this point. Look at Esteban, he's just so measured in his action. And he's still on the steepest part of the climb. When they come over this top of this, just this left-hand turn here, this slight bend, you'll find that the percentage grade of the climb does drop significantly. Very interesting to see Cameron Meyer in some very difficult circumstances there. He was definitely off the back by around 15 metres, off the back of that group of select 7 riders. In front of those 7 riders is this young Colombian, Esteban Chavez. He's fantastic to watch. Well, it's great to be able to bring you the live stream. We can hear the gears going down. He's made a massive gear change there, trying to keep his rhythm going here, Esteban Chavez. And look at the support on the sideline. They love Esteban. His nickname, Colombian Kangaroo. They love him. You can see the love arts on the road as well. He'll crest the top of this section of the climb and the percentage really drops off. So he's going to have to put it to the big chain ring and really continue his momentum. What's going to be interesting is can the riders from Benelong Swiss Wellness, Harper and Sunderland, create a good environment with them and Guerreiro to have a reason to chase back Esteban Chavez. They were the only numbers I could get in that front group at the moment with just 16 kilometres to go. Esteban Chavez is really pushing it hard at the front. We can confirm Nathan Earl, Israel Cycling Academy. He was also in that group with Howson, and he is starting to chase on to this lone rider in front. Esteban Chavez for Mitchelton Scott. He is being chased by Nathan Earl. Nathan Earl riding for Israel Cycling Academy. And well, Nathan Earl, who took the points, the major points on top of the King of the Mountain yesterday, he collected a maximum points of 12 yesterday. So if he was to come over the top here today and win this stage, he would be in fact on equal points. That would be 36 points apiece, he and Brad Evans. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, it would go to a countback. In the countback for the King of the Mountain, the way that works is equal points. It then goes back to who has won a Category 1 climb. If they've both won a Category 1 climb, then it's who's won a Category 2 climb. If they've both won that, they go down the categories. If still on equal points and equal countback at that point, it will then go to their finishing position overall in every stage combined, and the rider with the smallest amount of finishing positions would take the jersey. However, we don't have to worry about that because if Nathan Earl wins the stage today, it's the only Category 1 climb in this edition of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. He would therefore take the jersey. That would be a very intriguing situation if Nathan Earl could win this stage. He's definitely a rider that this climb does suit, and he is a rider that pushed the pace very hard up Mount Buninyong yesterday. He took out the King of the Mountain on Mount Buninyong yesterday, and after the finish, I spoke to him. I asked Nathan Earl about how fast the conditions were. He said, although it was a headwind, I never pushed under 500 watts. 500 watts for the entire climb. And I think that was the reason why James Whelan, the young Victorian, never stepped off the wheel over the top of the King of the Mountain. But after all was said and done, it was Mads Pedersen that was too fast on the line down into Buninyong yesterday. Well, Esteban Chavez, he continues to lead in the front, and it seems that a young rider, in fact, from Mobius Bridge Lane, Alexander Evans, we're being told. So Alexander Evans, the teammate of Brad Evans, he is making also a last-ditch attack. He's trying to come across to Esteban Chavez. This young Alexander Evans, keep in mind, he did win the ascent up, the major ascent up Poatina in last year's Tour of Tasmania. So the young boy does have pedigree and can climb very well. Look at Esteban Chavez, no stress at all, concentrating. And I tell you what, if he wants to win this stage today and he wants to take this yellow jersey in the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, in this Stage 3 Mitchelton Wines, Stage 3 of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour, he is going to have to ride like it's a stage in one of the major Grand Tours, because no longer can you come to a UCI race and take an easy victory. You have to fight hard for all the wins that you can get, and every single day of this tour they have done it. So right now, as we see pictures breaking up, and we knew this would happen, so we might go to some of the rider interviews from the start of today's stage. It's Esteban Chavez leading at the moment, with Alex Evans in between he and a small group, including Ruben Guerrero, Chris Harper, Lionel Mordaunt, and Dylan Sunderland from the Bennelong Swiss Wellness. We can also confirm that Nathan Earl is in that group as well, so he's a good chance for the stage. We don't have a time gap at this point, but last time check was 12 seconds to Alexander Evans and a further 4 seconds back to that group of around 8 riders. Damien Howson also in that group, but Cameron Meyer, very interestingly, he's out the back. We'll turn to these rider interviews from this morning. It was a great day at the start line at Mitchelton Wines, and well, it's a beautiful place to start the bike race.
I think for me, yeah, we'll wait. I think it'll be quite fast at the start, and it'll be a bit of shuffling around, a bit of a lead out into the climb. So the first part's going to be tough and sort of separate the climbers and the non-climbers. So just sort of sit tight for that bit, let things settle down a bit, see who's there, who's taking control, and then probably look at doing something in the later part of the climb.
I think the guy will win today, will take the race, and yeah, it's interesting. I love racing in Australia. In January it's really good with this weather, not like in Europe because it's snowing. So yeah, we will see. I'm looking forward, and I'm really excited.
I felt pretty good yesterday going up Mount Buninyong. It's only 3K, but hopefully we can extrapolate that to 20. So yeah, I think I'll be good today.
Well, Esteban Chavez, he looks really motivated. Unfortunately for Larry Warbass, who looks very motivated as well, he is not going to have what it takes today, unfortunately, the American champion. Interesting to see Nathan Earl, who is involved in the third group, we'd call it, on the road, because Esteban Chavez, he's in the front on his own. Then we've got that young rider from Bendigo, Alexander Evans, for Mobius Bridge Lane. He's trying to make the bridge across, and well, maybe, just maybe, we can have another beautiful story from this year's editions of the Jayco Herald Sun Tour. We've also got some highlights from Stage 1. Yeah, and what it was a brilliant effort by Damien Howson, but he was caught right on the line by Lasser Norman Hansen, right on the line. It was Steele von Hoff, so close, just like he was yesterday. And Cameron Meyer in third. Kunda Court not very happy. But Larry Warbass, the first thing he said, I was so excited for you to win.
Yeah, it was a really good race today. There was a lot of crosswind, and got split at about 30k to go and ended up in a 10-man bunch sprint. So yeah, really happy to take the win against names like Steele van Hoff and all the other fast guys.
Well, it's not only to take the win, but to get to the finish in that front group wasn't easy either. A lot of tactics going on out there with the teams that had multiple riders in that select group of 25 with just 15k to go.
Yeah, it was a lot of tactics. It wasn't really like difficult tactics. It was more about like staying on the echelon and not getting into the gutter completely. So yeah, it was really good racing, and yeah, all about race instincts in the end. Yeah, it's split into like a 20-man group, and then about 2k out, I attacked once again and split it down to a 10-man group, and then it was all about getting the right position into the last sprint up to the line.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the top three for the opening
I'll show you results of the stage as well. And what a great race it was. Lasse Norman Hansen, too good. But interesting to see Damien Housen and also Cameron Meyer in that group. But they're struggling a little bit. Ruben Guerrero, maybe that 3 seconds he lost in the final of that stage might just cost him. Most aggressive rider for the day was indeed Matthew Ross. And while he has been brilliant all this race from the get-go, Xander Warrnambool is brilliant. He also took the lead of the Young Riders jersey. Visit Victoria, Summer of Cycling, white jersey. For the Gatorade sprint jersey, well, Lasse Norman Hansen with the 10 points on the line, equal with the other two riders, but on count back because he has a stage victory. He took the lead in the green jersey. And well, it was Brad Evans who took the only King of the Mountain on the stage, the Category 4 climb for 8 points. For Iceaway Sports King of the Mountain, and for his team, Mobius Bridge Lane, he took the lead on that classification. It's been great to see this coverage. Jake Herald's son, tour leader after that stage, Lasse Norman Hansen, and well, we know that he's carried it through to now, but he's been dropped. Esteban Chavez, he continues alone in front. Alexander Evans and now Damien Housen really trying to solo across as we review these general classification after that stage into Warrnambool. And then the celebrations of Lasse Norman Hansen, so happy to produce such a great result, and saying how much he loves the racing in Australia, and he will be back next year, so that's great to hear from Lasse Norman Hansen. We've got live pictures back, so we'll cross back and check out, has Damien Housen made the cross across to his teammate with Alexander Evans in tow. Unfortunately, actually, the pictures have dropped out again. We will get them back as soon as we can, but we do have Stage 2 highlights from Warrnambool to Ballarat, the Surfside Warrnambool Holiday Parks Stage 2. Still on off, he put in a big attack at the line, coming off the wheel of his teammate Giacobo, but the lead out from Kundecourt, and incidentally also from Lasse Norman Hansen, the yellow jersey, was too good for the Danish champion Mads Pedersen. But it was a fantastic finish. You can see the decorations on the road there from the school kids. Steele Von Off and Mads Pedersen, the stage winner.
Yeah, with the distance and then with the headwind the whole day, it turned out to be a harder day than expected.
And as Danish champion, what's it like to win on the roads of the Australian Championship circuit?
I know I didn't think about this, but for sure it's nice to win here.
I expected to be in yellow after today. The climb was a bit harder than I expected, and I suffered a lot from the climb onto the finish.
It was pretty cool coming in here, especially wearing the jersey. So I got good memories here. It was pretty messy there in the last few K. There was a few risks coming left, right and centre in gutters and parked cars. So a bit of dodge and weave here, but look, I'm stoked, and just thanks to the team for helping me as they did. It's a bit of a shame I couldn't get them the win.
Yes, Alex Edmondson, a bit of a love affair with Buninyong now. How was the winning move formed?
From Kundecourt today, he did an impressive job by making a 1K lead out. So in the end I can thank him, but the whole team did an impressive job today, and to finish the teamwork off like this with a victory, that's super nice to pay them back like this.
Yes, Mads Pedersen, he's been fantastic, and as has Lasse Norman Hansen. They've been brilliant adds to the race. The Danish duo have just been phenomenal in this race already. Some incidentals, Tom Stewart, brilliant ride there, JLT Condor, and we don't usually think of 5th place, but Cyrus Monk, that was a great finish. The Australian national champion, Alex Edmondson, 3rd on the stage. Alistair Donahue, he was the most aggressive rider on the day, and well, they were out there for almost 200 kilometres, so well deserved. Matthew Ross, he retained his lead in the Young Riders jersey, and he remains in that group of 12 with Dylan Sunderland, so it's going to be a fine battle for the white jersey. Nathan Earl from Israel Cycling Academy, he took over the lead in the Iceaway Sports King of the Mountains classification, and well, he's lost that today, but if he wins today's stage, he could take it back. Steele Von Off, even 2nd place was good enough for him to take over the lead in the Gatorade Sprint jersey for Benelong Swiss Wellness. He's very happy with his result, but he wanted to win. Lasse Norman Hansen, well, he did a fantastic finish. He did enough. If Steele Von Off had have won the stage. It would have gone to count back and seen who would take it over. But with second, he fell 4 seconds short of the Danish rider. So it is the general classification now. Lasse Norman Hansen, 4 seconds lead over Steele Von Hoff, and a further 5 seconds back at 9 seconds. Cameron Meyer for Mitchelton Scott as they started today's stage at the Mitchelton Winery. And, well, it was a great race yesterday, but now we can see Esteban Chavez. And, well, as far as we know, Damien Howson, who was in trouble just moments ago, he's trying to make the bridge across with young rider from Bendigo and Mobius Bridge Lane rider Alexander Evans. I said earlier, he won the major Queen stage of the Tour of Tasmania last year up Poatina. A very similar climb to this one, maybe even slightly more difficult. Could the young rider from Mobius Bridge Lane create some form of an upset today? I tell you, with Esteban Chavez and also Damien Howson coming together, they would be just in a good position to drive all the way to the line. Maybe, just maybe, Alexander Evans can pull something brilliant off. The group of 12 behind, who we know contains the riders of Rubens Guerrero from Trek Segafredo. We also know that Cameron Bailey's been dropped. He was 4th on general classification. But Dylan Sunderland and Chris Harper from the Benelong Swiss Wellness team, they are there. Lionel Mordaunt is present in that front group of 12, as is James Whelan. So some really young, great climbing talent is in that group. Unfortunately for Jesse Featonby, the going got a little bit tough, so he's dropped away. So I'm trying to get some more information on the other riders in that group of 12. But we know that Ruben Guerrero is there, Lionel Mordaunt, Dylan Sunderland, Chris Harper is also there. But that group, only 12 riders. It looks like tomorrow we're going to have an exciting race for the time bonuses as well, going down to the wire. So everything is set, but this move from Damien Howson is a very interesting one. And I think maybe, just maybe, he's starting to believe that going back-to-back is a possibility. Today's stage, Mitchelton Winery to Lake Mountain. And, well, down at the start line, there was great crowds and a beautiful scene. But now we've got some pictures up here at Lake Mountain. As you can see, this is the finishing corner. You want to time your sprint to perfection here at Lake Mountain. The wind is up, almost a cross-tail sprint until that final corner. And, well, final preparations before the riders arrive. There's not many kilometres to go for the riders. We suspect to see them in the next 15 minutes. In the early breakaway today, 9 riders were out in front. Jonathan Noble for the Brisbane Continental team. Steele Von Hoff for Benelong Swiss Wellness. Matthew Ross for the Quarter Method National team. And also riders from the McDonald's Down Under team, Kane Richards and Alexander Ray. Brad Evans was out there. He took all of the major King of the Mountains points for the day. So he has taken over the Iceaway Sports King of the Mountains jersey. Out on the sprint course, Steele Von Hoff, he did the right thing in the green jersey. Representing in the breakaway, he took out both of the intermediate sprints. So he's extended his lead significantly, and it looks like tomorrow Steele Von Hoff has a really good chance to go into the stage just concentrating on the stage with 10 points lead over Kane Richardson from the McDonald's team Down Under. It's probably unlikely that Kane can pick up both of the intermediate sprints. So Steele Von Hoff, maybe he'll target tomorrow's stage. Maybe, just maybe, after finishing twice second in this tour already, he can pick up that much-desired victory that he has been in search of. Etienne Van Empel in the breakaway yesterday, and again in the breakaway today. We're looking at pictures of the Flying Fox up here on Lake Mountain. Had a bit of a dibble in that myself earlier. I know my son would love to come and have a go at that. It was a bit too high up for me though. But Chris Harper still in that front group, trying to make his way across to Damien Howson and Alexander Evans. But it is Esteban Chavez who continues in the lead. Looks like a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, but I only do it once. Beautiful scenes up here, but the overcast conditions now settling in, and the temperature has definitely dropped. The wind has picked up ever so slightly. We apologise for the break-in pictures, and we really appreciate the support of the stream already for this Jayco Herald Sun Tour this year. Also, for the women's race, it's been fantastic. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back to you.
I think I might walk back.
Really?
See ya.
Bye.
I'll join you. It's been great to hang out. Beautiful. Extra syllables. It's a multi-syllable vista, that. It's physically impossible to lick your own elbow. Do you know that?
Yes, well, Visit Victoria, very big part of this Herald Sun Tour, and without their support, well, maybe we wouldn't be coming to beautiful destinations like Lake Mountain. We can confirm, I did say Freddie Ovett had been dropped earlier from the Australian Cycling Academy. We've been confirmed he is part of that 12-rider league group that's chasing Esteban Chavez, Damien Howson and Alexander Evans. Esteban Chavez continues to be out in front on his own, and then it is his teammate Damien Howson, defending champion, chasing, trying to make that catch. Maybe, just maybe, Alexander Evans can pull off a big win. But Freddie Ovett, he has just latched onto that front echelon of 12 riders. They're in pursuit of those other 3 riders in front at just 9.5 kilometres from the top of the climb. As you can see, 5 hours and 40 minutes they've been racing out there today. An absolutely grueling day in the saddle for the riders after a long day as well yesterday. Over 5 hours of racing yesterday until they finished down in Ballarat. Well, we're up on the top of Lake Mountain, and as I said earlier in the cast, that unfortunately there's no cellular reception at parts of Lake Mountain Ascent, and that makes it difficult because we're not beaming the pictures. They're coming live from the 3G and 4G network that we have here. And so it's really great privilege to be able to bring you the stream, but as you can understand, some technical difficulties involved at this point. We're hoping to bring pictures back very shortly, but at the moment, all I can tell you is that at 9 kilometres to go, that group of 12 riders continues to chase the lone rider in front of Esteban Chavez, who is pursued by the 2 riders in between both of those groups, and that is Damien Howson and Alexander Evans. We're waiting for an update from the guys on the motorbikes to see if we can get some images to you, as the crowd really is quite big up here. Earlier today they had the Schools Challenge up here as well, the Vic Schools Challenge, and also the She Rides program was also up here. And on our travelup.com today, up to the top of Lake Mountain, so many people riding their bikes. Great to see. As I said earlier to Dave McKenzie when he was on the stream with me, I said Marysville just looks an absolute peace. We'll head down to Marysville and stay the night tonight. We look forward to the hospitality. Hospitality last night at Mitchelton Winery was just supreme. Fantastic stage start destination, and in fact, this is the Mitchelton Wine Stage 3 of the Jayco 2018 Herald Sun Tour. And well, we're going to take another break because the action is on its way back. We're just getting a reconnection as we speak, so we'll try to get those images back to you as soon as possible. Ruben Guerreiro now trying to force himself off the front. Can confirm Ruben Guerreiro, the Portuguese champion for Trek Segafredo. He's trying to make his move. And while he's in the best situation for mine, okay, Damien Howson still has a 6-second lead over him on the road and a 6-second lead on him on the general classification. But Guerreiro at 22 seconds, the young Portuguese rider and Portuguese road champion, he might be the one that can really get the job done here today. What a ride by Alexander Evans, holding on to Damien Howson and also closing in. I'm told that they're closing the gap ever so slightly to the lone rider in front, Esteban Chavez. As we saw on the live pictures when we had them, that Esteban Chavez, he made his move right at the bottom of the climb, wasting no time. As soon as we joined the coverage, there was riders being dropped out the back. All riders were being dropped from the start of the King of the Mountain. 20.5 kilometre ascent up Lake Mountain, not for the faint-hearted. Not a huge percentage of elevation gain and not difficult on a training ride, but a lot different when the Colombian Kangaroo, smiling assassin as such, puts down the hammer right from the get-go. Unfortunately, the casualty from that move for the Mitchelton Scott team is in fact Cameron Meyer, who overnight was at just 9 seconds off the general classification in third position. He has dropped off the pace, and it seems that he has not been able to regain contention with that group of 12. In that group of 12, though, Ruben Guerrero is present. Chris Harper is present. Dylan Sunderland is also there. We also can confirm that from the Quartermentha Real Estate national team, James Whelan is in that group. Lionel Mordaunt is in that group. We know that off the front is the young rider from the Mobius Bridge Lane, Alexander Evans. And as I've said twice already in the coverage, Alexander Evans won up the climb of Poatina, and he won in incredible style. It actually was his first ever victory. Not National Road Series victory, not international victory at all. He lives in Bendigo, a very strong cycling community in Bendigo, and a difficult club to win a bike race. So that win up Poatina in Tour of Tasmania 2017, up the Queen Stage finish, that was his first ever victory. So, well, he knows how to win the good ones. Can he win one today? I'll tell you what, the crowd would go wild, and so would I, after seeing earlier in the week in the Herald Sun Tour presented by Let's Go Motorhomes, it was in fact the rider from the Quartermentha team there also. It was Brodie Chapman. She was emphatic on the Hillsville to Hillsville stage, and if you didn't get a chance to catch the action, you can go back through the videos on the Facebook page and catch that Hillsville to Hillsville stage for the women's race. It was an absolute brilliant ride, and well, she got chased by none other than the World Individual Pursuit Champion, World Individual Time Trial Champion, in Hamonique van Vleuten. 20 kilometres to go. She had just 20 seconds lead, and she survived to the finish line with an 8-second advantage. Yes, Hamonique van Vleuten, she took just 12 seconds out of this brilliantly talented young Victorian Brodie Chapman. We've been updated, 5 kilometres to go. Esteban Chavez, 35-second lead over one rider. That one rider is unconfirmed, but we have a feeling that that may be Damien Housen. The 14 chasers, that group's now swelled ever so slightly, 14 riders. They're a minute behind. So Esteban Chavez, he is doing absolutely everything right to take this yellow jersey. We will have pictures of the finish, so stick with us on the stream. We'll definitely have pictures of the finish. We'll take another short break, and hopefully out of the back of that, we can bring you live images.
Oh, we've got everyone. Car left.
To your right. We do apologise for the breakup in pictures, and I'm glad that you're sticking with us on the stream. We will have live pictures of the finish. I can confirm that Nicholas Egg is one of the riders from Trek Segafredo that has made contact with that group of 12, making it 14, with also the inclusion of one other rider. He is driving the front. It's 51 seconds from that group of 14 to the lead group, which contains just Esteban Chavez. One rider behind him in between that group of 14. That group of 14, 51 seconds. The lone rider in between, he's just 14 seconds off Esteban Chavez. I thank you for sending the questions through on Twitter. I appreciate it, Neil. How much do these riders weigh? Well, Esteban Chavez weighs less than 60 kilograms. He weighs around 54 kilograms, similar to Richie Port. Richie Port a bit bigger, but about 56 kilograms. That's why they can fly up these climbs so fast. But the power climbers like Damien Housen, Nicholas Egg, as we've seen, and also Guerrero, who weighs ever so slightly more, may benefit. Also asked on Twitter at my handle about Steele Von Hoff, where has he ended up? Steele Von Hoff, unfortunately, he dropped off early in the stage on the ascent up Lake Mountain. It was to be expected. He's not a climber. He secured that sprint jersey today, and it looks very unlikely that he'll lose that as we see that clock ticking over 5 hours and 50 minutes. And well, ladies and gentlemen, you're stuck with us. We really appreciate it, and I thank you for sticking with us. Esteban Chavez, he's looking for glory here at the top of Lake Mountain. Can he take his first ever Jayco Herald Sun Tour stage, and also with that the leader's jersey? This morning at breakfast, no, I'll ride for Damien, no, I'll ride for Cameron Meyer. Well, today the Mitchelton Scott team, they've backed him in, and he's leading the charge. He has 51 seconds lead over the second group on the road behind him, which is that group of 14 containing Guerrero and also Nicholas Egg from Trek Segafredo. I got to tip my hat to Trek Segafredo this week. They have been super impressive. They've animated this race, and they've been an incredible inclusion. Just 2 kilometres to go for Esteban Chavez. This is the easiest part of the climb. He'll put it on the big chainring after this corner, and he knows he's got about 3 minutes of riding to go until he finds himself here for glory. Can they catch? Everyone will be emptying the tank back in the group. 2 kilometres should take him around about 3 minutes, and we can confirm we'll definitely have these live pictures all the way now. It's been fantastic to be able to bring you the stream. As I said earlier, thanks for your support. This, the Mitchelton Wine Stage 3, 218, yes, you heard right, 218 kilometres from Mitchelton Winery near Nagambie to Lake Mountain as Esteban puts it in the big chainring, gets out of the seat. He knows that every metre counts now. He has a rider in pursuit of him, and then a group of 14. Just 44 seconds is now the time gap. They're roaring behind him. They want to take this jersey. This shows you how much it means to these Europeans, and particularly the riders from the Mitchelton Scott team really want this victory. They want it so bad. As we see Esteban, he's driving so hard. He'll have one more pinch around this bend, quite steep in fact, so he needs to keep pouncing on the pedals. Ruben Guerrero in that second group with Nicholas Egg doing a bucket load of work. And here it is, the SRAM, 1 kilometre to go. Ultimo kilometro has come up, and he knows that's the sign for Esteban Chavez. It's 1.5 minutes, at best 1 minute 40 for him to reach the line here. He'll be pushing as hard as he can all the way to the line. 42 seconds. It's 42 seconds, and now it is Alex Evans. It's Alex Evans that is in front of the group, so we can confirm that it's not Damien Housen. It's Alexander Evans from the Mobius Bridge Lane. Well, what an absolutely incredible ride from Alexander Evans from Bendigo. I know there'll be plenty of people watching the stream in Australia in support of this young Bendigo rider. He's a brilliant talent. As we said earlier in the coverage, he has won up Poatina, a massive climb and a difficult climb in Tasmania. He's a fantastic young rider, still learning his craft well and truly. Esteban Chavez, he can see the 500 metre to go sign. This is very good for him. He knows he's got a big enough lead to go all the way for stage victory today. But will he take the 40 seconds, odd seconds that he requires to take the lead of the tour? That's the question, because Nicholas Egg, he is driving the pace back in the peloton. Down to 42 seconds. 42 seconds is the gap. Back to the main group of 12 riders now. That group of 12 riders, Alexander Evans just in front of those riders. And while Esteban Chavez, he looks set for glory here today for his Mitchelton Scott team. They left the Mitchelton Winery this morning, and I'm sure he wants to deliver this win for his team boss, Jerry Ryan. But can he get the yellow jersey? That's what he's pushing for. He keeps pushing the pedals. You can see him in the line now. He's coming to the line. He's only 300 metres out. Looks like a stage win for Esteban Chavez. It will indeed be a win for Esteban Chavez. What a genuine ride. He was the start favourite, the big favourite of the day. He does his salute. I'd be pedaling hard to the line, Esteban. Now the clock starts. We'll keep the camera on the clock. Keep your eyes peeled on that clock because that time gap is crucial. He needs to take 24 seconds out of Rubens Guerrero in the group. So we go back, if we can go back to the finish line and see when Rubens Guerrero comes in, that time's ticking past now. 21, 22, he's done enough. He's got enough time. He needs 30 seconds on his own teammate, Damien Housen. Look at this brilliant ride. Young man, he's only a young rider. Alexander Evans, put your hands together for this young man. I'm excited about what he can produce in the future. He won up Poetina in the Tour of Tasmania last year. Well, guess what, son? You've done another fantastic result. Doesn't even look that happy. Just another day at the office for this young rider from the National Road Series team and Continental outfit, Mobius Bridge Lane. They'll be very excited. We'll now have a look, see the sprint finish for the minor placings in the stage as Esteban Chavez takes a drink. It is Guerrero. It is Nathan Earl. It looks like Cameron Myers made his way back there as well. And it's Guerrero, Cameron Meyer, Damien Housen and Nathan Earl. They'll complete that as Chris Harper stops the clock. Well, the GC's had a major shake-up. I can tell you that, unfortunately, as great a performance as it is for Alexander Evans today, that finishing result won't move him up a heap in the general classification. Maybe 10th or 11th on the general, but the rest of the riders, Guerrero and also Nathan Earl was there present. Damien Housen, it may well have a 1-2 on the general classification for Mitchelton Scott. In fact, I think it will be Esteban Chavez, then Damien Housen, and then it will be Rubens Guerrero on the general classification. Confirmation of that can be found either on the results page of the event, the Jayco Herald Sun Tour page, or go to Twitter, follow the Sun Tour page, and you'll be able to find the results there. Apologies for the breakout in pictures, but I'm sure you enjoyed the coverage that we did bring you. I appreciate you for sticking along as we look at the final pictures here of the Mitchelton Scott team celebrating a great victory. First victory for Esteban Chavez of 2018, and now he will in fact take over the lead in the 2018 Jayco Herald Sun Tour. Thanks for joining me. I hope that you'll come down to King Lake tomorrow, and if you can't, have a look at the coverage on TV. It's been fantastic to bring you all the coverage, and I appreciate all your positive comments. We'll see you again very soon.